Civilization is a complicated and controversial concept. Like, to describe an individual or group as civilized is to give them a privileged status that they maybe haven't earned, while to call someone uncivilized is an insult, right? And according to the usual mythology about civilizations, there are these uncivilized barbarians, often from the hills or the forest or the steppe, and they realize the benefits of settled agriculture and give up their barbaric ways to settle in the valleys, eventually assimilating into civilized society. That's a really neatly packaged story, right? Like, people all around the world come to the same realization and they all make progress and become civilized. But what if it's not actually true? So today, a little something for the anarchist historians among you. We're going to look at The Art of Not Being Governed, an Anarchist History of Upland Southeast Asia by James Scott. Scott argues that our view of hill people as primitive tribal barbarians has it all wrong, and he calls into question much of what we assume about civilization. So as you know, here at Crash Course World History, we like to approach history from many different perspectives, because history isn't just about what happened, it's also about how we think about what happened. So here you go, anarchists. We are finally going to address your burning suspicion that civilization does not actually require a state. So longtime Crash Course viewers will remember that many of the earliest civilizations were founded in river valleys, probably because the rivers brought water and made agriculture easier and more predictable. You know, you got the big three: ancient Egypt, ancient Mesopotamia, and the Indus Valley civilization, all near river valleys. In fact, one of them is named after the Indus River. And because the land was so fertile for agriculture, you could finally have large concentrated populations because there was a food surplus. Everything that we associate with civilization, from the idea that different people can have different jobs to like this video camera, all a result of food surplus. Because if some people couldn't create enough food for all people, then like all people would be very focused on getting food. Having a food surplus was a huge change compared to like the first 100,000 years of humanity, when everyone was a hunter-gatherer. Food surplus led to population growth and population concentration, which led to states and what we tend to call civilizations, which are characterized by good things like writing and arts and grocery stores. So that's the traditional narrative, but I'm not sure that it's the whole story. Let's go to the thought bubble. Now, we might equate civilization with high culture, but historically it's probably more accurate to equate it with state control. Like the Han Chinese, who were a pretty successful civilizing empire back in the day, wrote of barbarians as people who were beyond state control. Some of these so-called barbarians were pastoral nomads whose raiding posed a genuine threat to the Chinese, but others were people who lived in the hills. So the opposition of civilized agricultural societies living in the valleys and barbarian hill people is as old as, you know, like the hills. In Southeast Asia, the story that hill people were dazzled by civilization and joined up circulated as well. Here, though, the civilizing force was the reading of religious or philosophical texts. But more important than either access to classical age texts or civilizing experiences in the city was that civilizations were based on settled agriculture and were associated with states. In a way, it can be argued that without a state, there's no such thing as a barbarian. But because we live in states, we tend to think that they are A, necessary, B, timeless, and C, overall a pretty good thing. And almost all civilizations are associated with states, like ancient Egypt, or China in the remote past, or France if you're into Western civilization. So when we talk about states, we need to remember that it's pretty common for the creation of states to involve some form of coercion. Like in ancient, and sometimes not ancient societies, the power of the state rested primarily on two things: the army and taxes. And if you want to create an army or raise taxes, or both, it's helpful to have a sedentary population that spends most of its time producing food, because food is very valuable to a state. I mean, while gold and palaces are beautiful, you can't feed them to your army. Anyway, agricultural production and the creation of states are deeply intertwined. Agricultural surplus and control over it leads to other aspects of civilization, like property rights and patriarchy. Well, I guess it doesn't have to lead to patriarchy, but it usually has. And this leads us to James Scott's big idea that rather than primitive hill tribes being attracted to the glamour and stability of valley settlements, hill cultures are formed by people running away from civilization. Basically, Scott argues that people flee to the hills because it makes it hard for states to find and conquer them. The Arab historian Ibn Khaldun remarked that Arabs can gain control over flat territory and do not pursue tribes that hide in the mountains. This idea turns the civilization narrative on its head. Hill people are not barbarians waiting to become civilized. They're refugees from civilization itself. And this brings up the possibility that life in the hills is actually better than settled agricultural states with their wars and taxes and forced labor. Furthermore, cities and settlements breed epidemic diseases, and when the next Spanish flu comes for all of us, it's gonna be good to be in the mountains. That said, I'm not 100% sold on the argument, which is why I'm living in very flat, very civilized Indianapolis. I mean, as I said earlier, without agricultural surpluses, we wouldn't have the internet, which I'm fond of. Also, I have tried the hunter-gatherer paleo diet, and it did not suit me. I like Doritos. Stan just told me that the paleo diet is not, in fact, the diet the people of the hills have. Apparently, the kind of agriculture they used was called swiddening. It means shifting cultivation, and apparently it's great because it provides a more varied diet with less effort. So can we finally conclude that hill people, as well as nomads and other cultures that attempt to live outside the state structure, are not primitive people left behind by civilization, but those who have made a conscious choice to avoid it? The question of what's the best and most just way to organize our social orders is a big question and a very old one. But it's something we still need to be asking because we're all still making choices about how we're going to organize ourselves into communities. But I'm not enough of an anarchist to let this episode go without acknowledging the extraordinary accomplishments of civilization. Not just agriculture, but everything from antibiotics to the ability to be connected to people who live half a world away from you. The deep and growing interconnectedness among humans has its risks for sure, but it also provides tremendous opportunities. We can collaborate, we can play each other in FIFA, and we can also do this together. But then again, there's an extraordinary freedom to Zomian-style social orders, and vitally, their way of life is far more sustainable than ours. Thanks for watching.